Okay, people are just joining right now, so. I'm gonna stop share for a moment so I can try to find Wendy. There she is. Great. Okay, well, we have about 90 people so far, and it's going up. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. And just do a quick welcome. Hi, my name is Raquel Rose. I get to be the new superintendent here in the Kentfield School District. So welcome everyone. In just a couple minutes here, you're gonna get to hear from some of our team members from Basic School. And so I'm gonna go ahead and punt it over to Marianne, and I'll just be in the background. You're on.
Great. Okay. I am Marianne Spitzer, the new principal of Basic Elementary, and I am so happy to be in Kentfield. I've had such a warm welcome. I have truly enjoyed working with all the teachers that I've already been working with this summer, and I feel very welcomed in the community, and that feels great. And so if you want to learn anything more about me, I think a letter went out on Monday with a link to meet your principal. So hopefully if you want to learn anything about me, like my favorite food or what I like to do for fun, you can take a look at that. And I've received some emails from families and folks and connections of going to the same university or things like that. And it's just like, it's a lot of fun. So thank you so much, because in this time, it's super hard to build relationships, and I will work very diligently at it. And I'm looking forward to just getting to know my whole community. So I'd like to introduce Wendy, and she is our new assistant principal. For her to say a few words.
Great, thank you so much, Marianne. Hi, I'm Wendy Holmes, and I'm the K-8 assistant principal here at Basic as well as at Kent Middle, and I am absolutely thrilled to be joining the Kentfield community. And know it's such a dynamic and rich and warm community here in Kentfield, and I'm just thrilled to be part of it. It's really been an honor to work with the teachers this summer and the staff this summer as we're planning our reopening of schools, and I can't wait to meet you and your children virtually as we kick off the school year and start building those relationships. Like Marianne, I do have the assistant principal page. I think that went out in a letter earlier this, in a message earlier this week, and so you can get to know me a little bit more in that way. But feel free to reach out, and again, happy to be here.
Thanks, Wendy. Can you go to the next slide, Raquel, please? All right, so we are so incredibly fortunate to have 3 wonderful teachers here with us today, and they're all been working pretty diligently most of the summer on our instructional committees, and so they're here to introduce themselves and also to let you know who the 3rd and 4th grade teams are. So, whoops. Technical difficulties. Oh my goodness. All right, it's a test. Can you guys remember your teams without looking at the screen in pressure situations?
Yes, we've been talking all summer.
All right, Jenna, why don't you start and introduce yourself and the 3rd grade team?
So I'm Jenna Moriello, 3rd grade teacher and co-GLC with Andrea Livingood. And we also have Katie Colwell, who is my co-teacher, and then Heather Snyder, who's on here, and Jen Wallen coming from TK, and Erica Johnson. Fabulous people.
Thanks, Jenna. Heather, do you want to say hello?
I'm just excited to join the 3rd grade team. Really excited to come back to 3rd grade after many years in kindergarten and 1st.
All right. Okay, and then for 4th grade, Marjorie.
Hi, nice to see you. I just wanted to tell you that I never always rely on technology, so I did write the names of my teams down in case I got a little bit too nervous to say them. So on our team, I'm new to 4th grade this year. I have taught 4th in the past. Last year at Basic, I was at 3rd, so I'm so excited to see the kiddos go on to 4th. It's always been a dream of mine to follow them to see what's happening. But so on our team, we've got Maria Martin, Denise Marshall, Brittany Stone, and Victoria Denson.
Excellent. Thank you, ladies, so much for being here. So we're going to go through a quick slide deck, and then we'll have time for questions and answers at the end, and our teachers will be available to answer questions also. All right, Raquel. Okay, so just to give you the big picture framework, our strategic plan calls out 4 areas where we really want to focus our learning. And we really have focused on physical and social emotional well-being. These are the parts to the left there. High quality academics that also support eliminating our achievement and opportunity gap. Optimizing our resources, both financial and human, and then thinking boldly. And of course, we are thinking extra boldly during this challenging time of distance learning. So we've definitely leaned into that. And then we have a certain framework that we're going to stick to that helps us design our learning day and our instructional day. And so as you see in capital letters there, connectedness. And we're really, really wanting to make sure that we focus on connecting with parents and families, connecting with our students, helping our students connect with each other. So that's a primary focus. And then we do have some frameworks that have been given to us by the state. So we need to adhere to certain amount of instructional minutes per day. We'll no longer have a shortened Wednesday because we have a requirement to have at least these many minutes per day per grade level. So you can see there, kindergarten is 180 minutes, 1st through 3rd is 230, and then 4th through 12th is 240 minutes. So you'll know that daily instructional time will at least be adhered to these many minutes per day, and it's every day. Also, one of the main things we need to think about is focusing on our core instructional areas and our essential standards. So thinking numeracy and literacy, thinking we really want to work on math, reading, writing, but we'll have an integrated approach. So maybe writing will connect with science, or maybe there'll be in the morning meeting, there'll be social studies or citizenship or social justice. And then we still will be focusing on having our rich enrichment areas. And so there'll still be music and art and PE in those enrichments so that we can provide those activities, but maybe more in an integrated way or once weekly. So you'll see when we show the schedule. And then one of the major areas of focus is really social emotional learning strategies, really taking the pulse of our students daily, making sure that we're aware of how they are feeling emotionally, but also then providing activities that help them skill build around problem solving, decision making, controlling their feelings, understanding their feelings, and so that's a big focus also. And then finally, you'll see the schedules that we're going to show you. We need to be flexible and ready to move to in-person when we need to. So we've created a distance learning schedule that's flexible enough and that's been thought out enough that when we slowly bring students back, that we would be able to transition easily and that we wouldn't have to revamp our whole schedule. So those are our major frameworks. And then just to give you an idea of a tentative daily schedule, and we'll go deeper in the next slide, like what will be happening each day. But if you just look on the left at Basic, our school day will still be the 8:10. And so when we go back to in-person, that would be when 8:10 to 8:30 would be like a staggered entry time. But then the actual instructional day starts at 8:30. So kindergarten, to get those 180 minutes, it would be 8:30 to 12. So that's 3.5 hours. So we have breaks in there. And then 1st through 4th is 8:30 to 1, which is 4.5 hours. And then lunch and dismissal is right after the instructional day. And that would transition to a grab and go lunch when we were in person. So lunch would be off campus either way. And then in the afternoons, teachers have time for collaborative meetings and planning, and definitely planning is super key at this time when we're really all somewhat new to this model and we're really thinking about how to best serve our students. And at that time, to extend the day for students, we plan to have some maybe further enrichment activities, choice kind of afternoon, maybe clubs, maybe kind of after school kind of enrichment type classes. You know, we're throwing around a lot of ideas for the afternoon so that the kids can still have a full day of activities, but the instructional day does end at 12 and 1, depending on the grade level. For 3rd and 4th graders, it'd be 1 o'clock. So next slide. So this is a sample of an instructional day. Some of the things that you could expect. So morning meeting is 8:30 to 9. And at the morning meeting, you can expect that to be live. And then the other colored that's yellow there, enrichment later in the afternoon. You can expect that to be live at least once a week, where that is a live connection with an enrichment teacher. It could be art, PE, music. And then the green blocks are your 3 core instruction blocks or your student support block. And depending on the grade level, they would rotate, they would be in a different order. So maybe math, ELA, writing, and then a support block is 3rd grade. But maybe 4th grade starts with a support block and then goes math and reading and writing. So every grade level will have a different schedule of blocks, but the blocks will be at the same time. So the content is different, and that will make it so, you know, every 3rd grader, no matter what teacher they have, will have the same schedule. You know, they'll have math at the same time, and every 2nd grader. And our intervention teachers, you know, and our specialists will be able to, you know, help 1st graders during their support time, and in the same day help 2nd graders in their support time, because it's at different times. So some of the beauty of this schedule is that support block, and really thinking about what can we do for students individualized during that time. So that would most likely be a lot of live instruction for small groups. It might be a special education teacher working with a group. It could be paraprofessionals. It could be an intervention specialist. It could be the classroom teacher saying, hey, meet me during student support time, because I want you 3 to work on these math problems with me a little bit further. So maybe some teacher noticed earlier in the day some kids struggling with a concept, and then they bring them in during that time. So that's why we've called it kind of office hours. So that really gives us the freedom to really do some individualized support for kids. It says enrichment plus because we were also considering, and this we came up with today, so you know how new this is. But if there's enrichment live for a classroom once a week, we have those other 4 days a week. Maybe we can be doing social studies and science. Maybe we can be doing another intervention support. And so we were just really excited about the flexibility of this kind of schedule, but also the fact that there's a structure for kids and a structure for families. And if you have questions about this, please ask at the end, because it might seem complicated, but I just wanted to be clear that the green blocks could be at different content areas at different times for different grade levels, but the yellow blocks stay, and that the morning meeting is live, and that there'll be live instruction within those core blocks, depending on the teacher and the structure. So you could imagine that maybe at 9 o'clock, your child goes to math for 15 minutes, but then maybe there's some independent work or maybe there's small groups, but they had 15 minutes of a whole group instruction for math. So, and then at their next core block, maybe it's set up a little differently. Maybe the teacher sets up a bunch of small groups. And then the next core block, there's another live block. So understanding that there's much more probably live instruction that you experienced in the spring. Okay, I think I got enough of that one. So then you'll see, then you can ask me questions later if you have any more questions.
Great, thanks, Marianne. As we were designing our distance learning plan, our learning plan overall, we really wanted to develop a plan that allows for fluidity and ease of transition between distance learning and a hybrid or in-person model whenever that is able to happen. Our learning plan is focused on an approach that touches on different modalities, opportunities for students to engage in really deep content learning and application of that learning, communicating or interacting with their peers and adults in the class, movement and active learning, and time to be creative with that integration of enrichment. And like an in-person traditional model, there are many different types of instructional strategies and experiences that we see in our classrooms. This list here is sort of examples of the kinds of ways that your children will be engaging in their learning during distance learning. So I'll go through, touch on a number of these and what they include. So we're really familiar with whole group or small group live instruction. These are sort of our Zoom meetings, our Zoom lessons that our students and our children engaged in last year, and we'll continue to do that this school year multiple times during the day. So that's interactive kind of reciprocal teaching and learning. The screen-free exploratory time. So really it's important for us to have opportunities for students to not just be on their screens, but also doing things that are off screens. So this might be reflective writing or a writing prompt that your child has been assigned that they're working on. And maybe if it's on paper, it's not even actually on a Google Doc, but it might be on a Google Doc, for example. Time that's connected to outdoor learning. So science exploration might be backyard science, movement activities with our PE teachers, other creative ways for them to be creative. We might, one of the tasks might be having a discussion with your family on a topic you're learning about, or playing a math game together. So those are some kinds of screen-free exploratory time. Along with the more directed instruction, we'll have independent self-directed learning opportunities. So following that instruction from your teacher, maybe some guided, we're supporting doing some guided work together, then there's time for students to work independently after those Zoom meetings. And then as we know that it's really important so that we can best support every child is to provide that really good feedback. So we use different platforms like Seesaw or Google Classroom or shared Google Docs with making comments and interacting in that medium, small group or one-on-one instruction in Zoom, lots of different ways for us to provide feedback so that we're able to support students, support your children in progressing with their learning, to help them when they encounter a challenge or a difficulty, or to push, help to give them an extra challenge if they've already mastered something and they're ready to go a little bit deeper. Our teachers are finding really awesome vehicles, really awesome modalities for different digital resources, such as doing teacher podcasts or blogs or other ways for learning. So example might be a podcast for auditory learning, and that's something that we've been seeing. Targeted extension and intervention opportunities, Marianne talked about that. So having that designated support block, which might provide some individual support for students who need a little bit more time and more additional teacher support, as well as opportunities for additional challenge. So that's already built into the schedule. I'm sure you're really familiar with those recorded videos from our PE teachers, from our classroom teachers. Example might be a mini lesson, a Reader's Workshop mini lesson that the teacher has recorded. Your child watches that and then goes into their reading workshop time. So we'll continue to see a lot of that as we move forward with distance learning this year. We also talked about, Marianne alluded to the integration of enrichment. So enrichment will have that designated time, but there's also the opportunity for our enrichment teachers to partner with our classroom teachers. So we're doing some transdisciplinary instruction. So weaving language arts and the arts together, or weaving movement and integrating those movement breaks. So you'll see some of that, as well as that designated enrichment time. thinking about formative assessment, we know that our students it's been a while since we've been able to assess their learning. So it's going to be really important for us to be able to see where they're at when they come back to school, and see where their areas where we need to accelerate their learning, and where we really need to lean in and offer even more support than we would have had they had the full 3 months of the last school year in person. So that will be something that we'll be doing, as well as ongoing assessment tools, both digital tools as well as our more traditional assessment tools, to make sure that our students are continuing to progress during distance learning. And all of this, throughout all of this, we'll make sure there's lots of opportunities for interactions between peers. So it's not just teacher-to-peer interaction, but lots of teacher-to-student interaction, but interactions and discussions between peers. And all of this is through our synchronous or asynchronous learning options. So synchronous, where students are doing the same thing at the same time. An example is a Zoom session where all the learning is happening concurrently, versus asynchronous, where students are learning different things at different rates and different paces. So you'll see examples of that throughout your child's experience. And then going to the next slide. So thinking about the opportunities and supports that we would like to provide you and your families. Number one, we really need to make sure that you have the vehicle for accessing, your child is a vehicle for accessing their learning, which is a device. So, and as well as internet access. So we are sending out a survey and messaging so that if your child does not have a device to be able to access their learning, or you need some support with internet access, we'll be doing some outreach to make sure that you do have those tools to be able to ensure that your child can engage in distance learning fully. Also childcare, we're partnering with Marin Enrichment to offer options for students to have childcare through the school day. They have different options that they're putting together. They're really being creative and thinking out of the box so that they can offer small groups of students, 6 to 8 groups of students, in a really safe environment, for some chunks of long chunks of time or shorter chunks of time, where they can provide support with your child with their distance learning, as well as other really fun activities such as sports, games, and the arts. So if you're interested, please reach out to Marin Enrichment. We really want to make sure that that's available to everyone who's interested. We're also offering our lunch program starting day 1 of our school year. We're going to be offering lunch so that you can participate. We are partnering with a new vendor, School Foodies, and would like to thank PTA for their leadership in helping to organize this opportunity. So that is something that you'll be continuing to receive more information about, but just know that the school lunch program will be continuing, and so that's available for you as well. Marianne spoke to the enhancements, enrichments, and interventions, and I touched on it a bit as well. But during those blocks of time, as well as after the dismissal time, we're looking at ways for students to extend their learning, to deepen their learning, and for us to provide those tailored supports for students so that they continue to progress with the grade level content as the year goes along. And then finally, with parent education, we know that these are challenging times, and there's a lot of new things that we're learning how to do, and distance learning is no easy feat. And so we want to make sure that you have the supports and the educational background to be able to best support your child, so that we're going to be offering different workshops on different topics. So for example, how do you set up your child's learning environment for the best, distance learning experience possible? How do you log on different learning platforms? What are some strategies that you might use to help support your child with their reading, reading their books, or solving a math problem? So we're interested to know the types of topics that you would like to know more about, so that we can best support you. But please know that those will be forthcoming, and we'll continue to offer those so that we can make sure that you have all the tools in your tool belt to best support your child, as we're doing that for ourselves as well. And the last slide, I think, is our questions and answers. So this is an opportunity for you all to give your questions to us, and we'll see, we'll provide our responses.
Great. I'm going to go ahead and stop share so I can see our attendees.
And then I just wanted to jump in because one of the things I saw in the chat, and just wanted to remind you that 3rd and 4th grade are definitely one-to-one Chromebooks. And so your child will be receiving a Chromebook, and we'll of course figure out how to get all those picked up. But we're organizing them right now. And so anyway, I just wanted to let you know that you will have a Chromebook issued to your 3rd and 4th grader. And so you don't have to worry about the device, but we will be still connecting with families to make sure that you have the good connectivity that you need for internet in your home. So we'll still have supports for that and information about that.
Thank you so much for that clarification, Marianne.
So we have 2 hands up. And so Megan Levin or Megan Levine.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Megan Levin.
Hi.
I'm the mom of a 4th grader. And one, I really appreciate you doing this. It's super helpful. I have a question just for clarification on the schedule. Should we interpret all of the greens as those are times where they're going to be sitting down and receiving live instruction? Or is the green more that like that's when we should be assuming that they have an activity they're assigned to do during that time?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
So the teachers haven't exactly, come to like the exact minute, the exact
Sure.
organization of the live instruction during that green time, but you could expect that there may be a whole group, maybe instruction at the beginning at 9. One of the things that we did when we set up these times is we thought it would make sense for kids to understand that they check in at 9 and 10 and 11.
Yeah.
It could be that there's not whole group instruction that day, but it's breakout groups, or that maybe there's whole group instruction, then some independent work, kind of like what Wendy was talking about in that one slide where there's so many ways that you could instruct. Teachers will be given the freedom to figure out how they're going to organize that core block, but it would be most likely that there'd be some live instruction. I just can't really say like, okay, during math, they're always going to have 30 minutes of live and then 15 minutes of independent time, because I think we're going to still leave that up to the teachers to see how that works for them. But you could expect that in those green, there would be live instruction.
And it's in general that like there's just more structure than in the spring is the bottom takeaway, which is great. I mean, you guys did the best you could for the spring, I know. But that it's more that there will be structure that we can also, because I know that my daughter has really appreciated having structure, and she missed having that like daily schedule of like, what is it that we're doing? And instead it was me writing it, which she didn't always love. So I think that's great.
Yeah, everyone will have the same schedule instead of,
That's great. And I'm looking forward to the parent education. So thanks again.
Actually, the teachers are very excited about that. And they made it really clear to us that that was really important, that, that you guys are working as a team and they understand the heavy load that you guys are taking at home. And so they're excited to be able to really, they're the ones who want to do the parent education, and they want to support, being able to make it clear what the expectations are and what, so I think that'll be great.
It'll be great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. So next, Amy Bornstein.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Marianne, for your presentation. And Wendy, I look forward to meeting both of you. I'm like a little bit confused maybe on the schedule. So to me, what I understand it to be is what you showed, 4 core blocks for 45-minute periods, and then you kind of insinuated that perhaps 15 minutes of those would be live learning. So the other half hour might be, I'm assuming, individual work. But then you said maybe some of those would be small group learning, and then maybe some days your kids wouldn't even have live learning. So is there so how is that going to work, and how are we kind of going to find out what we're getting into? Because in my head, I kind of assumed that that's what it would look like every day, with 4 slots with potentially 15 minutes of live learning for my personal child or everyone's child, and then a half hour of independent work. But it sounds like that's not going to be the case.
I'll let the teachers address it if they want, but we really haven't the people on the instructional committee are from all different grade levels. So I'm really waiting until the grade level teams get together. And then
Okay.
4th grade could say, that's what we're going to do as a grade level. We're always going to meet at 9 and have a 15-minute, you know, I think that I need to leave that up to the teachers on what they think is best for kids, best for structure, you know, and then once that is designed, then instead of you getting this little like kind of sample schedule, you'll get the real deal. You'll get, here's what we're going to do. This is when math is, this is how it's going to look. So I think that that's forthcoming. I don't know if anyone else wants to address that or just agree.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. I'm out of the game here. I was just gonna say, hi Amy, how are you?
Hi, how are you, Miss Moriella?
We haven't had the opportunity to meet as a grade level yet, but I know that at least 3rd grade, we've been talking back and forth, just like texting about different ideas, and we're excited about experimenting with different ways to teach our students in this odd time. And know that as soon as we have a schedule that we think meets the needs of our students, or not a schedule, that we have the schedule, as soon as we have the instructional strategies down that we think best meets the needs of all of our students, we're going to give that to you guys right away. We don't want to keep secrets from you, or we want to keep you informed and have an open communication and partnership with you guys.
And just out of curiosity, like when you have a core block, you know, and say it's a small group block, what are the other kids going to be doing?
I don't know yet.
All right, I'll stop asking. We can reconvene in another week or so.
I mean, I kind of envision kids in different breakout rooms and popping in and out, but I don't want to commit to that yet because I'm not sure if that's going to work. I haven't tried it. So,
and then my final question is, like, when you say you're leaving a lot to the teacher discretion, because I'm sure, you know, different ways work, you know, better or worse for different teachers, but could there be a scenario where like Heather's class has, you know, 2 hours of live learning, but Jenna's has 20 minutes? Like, and how would that work for parents and the feelings of an inequality of learning among same grade kids in the same school?
Yeah, I think the grade levels will end up making decisions that what the whole grade level will do. But I want to be clear that there might be students that get more live learning due to intervention or extra enhancement, or, you know, it's not going to be exactly the same amount of minutes of live learning for all kids, but there might be certain things that are the same for everybody. So as I think I made the example, maybe at 9 and 10 and 11, there will always be the 15 minutes of whole class instruction. But then maybe some kids will go off independently and work, and other ones will stay and work with, 3 of them will stay and work with the teacher, and another 3 from different 3rd grade level classes will be pulled to work with the special education teacher. So that's where the flexibility is to provide individualized support. But the teachers understand that they need to have, you know, a lot of their, half of their instruction live. And it's just how they do it is what I think is important for me to give them that, that license to do that.
Yeah. I'll just add to that too. I mean, we have other adults who are also stepping into support. So our paraeducators might be working with individual students or a small group of students as well. Other teachers who are not the classroom teacher who may step in and provide support. So we're going to see different kinds of interactive live instruction happening with students and in, you know, different size of groupings. But just know that we're building plans that are to best meet the needs of each individual student.
And then finally, and I promise this is my last question, but one of the things that definitely is sitting on my shoulder is just assessment. And, you know, having zero background in education, like I really have no idea, like other than, you know, conversations with my kids' teachers at the end of the year, but just, you know, personally, you don't have the same idea of where your kids are at and where they need to be. So I don't know if you guys have that assessment plan in place, but it would be, at least for me, I'm sure other people feel similarly, great to sort of let us know how our kids are going to be assessed and when, just so we can all feel, maybe secure that we if we need to get extra help, some kids who are doing fine might have fallen behind. Some kids could be, well advanced in this, but we have no idea as parents.
Yeah, that's a great question. And that we feel the same way you do. Like at this point, all of our assessments are old. And then all the things that have happened to students between the distance learning and now, you're right. Some kid could be super advanced because they've been just doing Khan Academy for fun all summer long. And then, other kids could be really struggling. And so we know we're going to assess early, and we know we're going to share what we learn with parents. And then it's also going to drive our instruction and how we support students. But the plan for what exact assessments we're using and those kind of things, we don't have exactly nailed down yet. But please know that we know that it's so, so important to know what we're working with. And so it's a challenge because we're virtual, but yeah, that's definitely high on the priority list for both Basich and Kent. Yeah, Marjorie, do you have
I could jump in there because I'm part of the approach team for the instructional task force, and that's always on our minds, like how are we going to assess? And the great thing is not only we as, teachers have had the opportunity to meet more and plan for this coming fall, but programs themselves. So like existing programs that we use have also been building for this assessment, and they're totally in line with our goals as well. So it's kind of nice that they're stepping it up as well.
Well, thank you, because I assume that small group learning could only be enhanced by, knowing where kids, stand academically. Anyway, thank you guys so much. We're excited for the start of school, and I really appreciate all the hard work you've been doing.
Thanks, Amy.
So Erica Applestein.
Hi, y'all. Sorry. Hello again to some of you. Thank you so much for taking your time to answer these questions. I just wanted to ask a quick clarifying question that was sort of addressed, but I'm a little bit confused. It sounded at one point, Marianne, where you said that students could expect that half of the time would be live. Is there any sort of baseline expectation for number of minutes out of that quote unquote instructional time that will actually be live across a grade level, or is that completely left up to the teacher? Because you've said I understand the desire to give teachers freedom and stuff like that, but I'm just wondering if parents can have an expectation that there is sort of a minimum level of live interaction that will be taking place.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think why it's hard to answer is we do have requirements of the teachers of how much time we expect them to have active instruction with kids online. But it doesn't always have to include every student in the class for the exact same amount of time. So you can expect that your child will have live instruction, and maybe live instruction every core block. But some kids may have more active instruction if they are getting intervention. So I guess you're wanting a baseline. The teachers have an expectation of how much active instruction they'll be doing each block. And it's, at 50%, but it doesn't really mean that every student will get that active instruction that whole time. Okay. That needs to be what's best for kids. So it's kind of hard to,
No, but that was a helpful clarification that the 50% that you were referring to for those core blocks is live instruction time with at least one human child, right? Yeah. That it could be distributed in a lot of different ways. But so I was kind of confused about that. So it sounds like the expectation is that there will be some live instruction for all children during the core blocks, but that, beyond that, there's going to be variety based on specific student need. Is that an accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty good. Good job.
Okay. Thank you.
And I was going to add to that we will have daily morning meetings that all students are invited to, and that is for every child at the same time. And at the end of the day, we have our office hours times and our check-ins. And so students will be definitely checking in with their teacher way more often than they were in the spring. It might be in small groups, or it could be whole groups. And that's the part where Jenna was talking. We're going to come together as a team and make our best plan for our students.
Great. I think for me, I would just say that I just hope that we figure out a way to make sure that the kids who are doing just fine are still getting enough live touches. Because I obviously we don't want anyone to fall through the cracks, but we don't want the kids who are performing well to lose that sense of connection to their school. So I would just sort of put that out there as a thought, as we obviously keep our focus on the achievement gap and making sure that everyone, a rising tide lifts all boats, but we just also want to make sure that all of our kids stay engaged to the degree possible. So thank you so much for all the work you guys are doing. I know how dedicated you are. And I really, we all appreciate you. So thank you.
Thanks, Erica.
Great. So Leah or Lee?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Hi, it's Lee. Thank you so much. I think you're hearing a common trend with the people, the parents, I believe, before me. So I will say that the spring was very traumatic. As a single parent working New York hours, over 12 hours a day, also teaching my daughter at the same time.
Wow. Oh shoot, what happened to you?
Sorry. So the weekends were used for me instructing my daughter. So I think to hear that there would only be 15 minutes of instruction in a block is very hard for me, as well as 50% of instruction. So I understand where you are, that you're planning, and I sincerely appreciate that. And by the way, I totally recognize your personal lives and all of that. I appreciate what you do and what you're doing. But for a parent thinking about what they need to maintain around education going forward, it's really hard to sort of hear the wiggle room that 15 minutes of education and 50% of time of education allows. So I would like to know when we're going to understand very clearly what type of in-person education will occur, so that I can plan accordingly. I just need to know so I can sort of get my own life in order and understand balancing all of the things I have to balance.
Lee, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing your story to everyone. And
I have no choice. I'm sorry. It just, sorry, everybody. I don't know anybody, but it was really difficult. So I can't be the only one. And the thought of having to maintain what I did in the spring is just, it's not sustainable, right? For any single parent, right? So, or any parent. So I will work and do whatever I can with you. And I just need to know what true level of engagement I'm going to get around in-person learning and teaching.
Sure. Yes. And I hear that need, and we'll get it out as quickly as we can. And we'll continue to communicate, and we'll continue to do parent education and supports. And again, you're an example of, individualized support that might be needed for your child or for you that we're happy to do. And so, but I hear you loud and clear about the hearing, and I do hear that it's been quite the theme. Like, how much live are you really going to do? So, yeah, and you have all the teachers here hearing you. And so we'll do our best to get that out as quickly as we can. And then, listen to the feedback of parents and what else they need.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just chime in really quick, because I'm seeing this in the chat and it touches on what you mentioned, Lee. This is Raquel Rose talking. So people are asking about Marin enrichment and the partnership there. And so for people to know, that is an opportunity where they're setting up a system where they'll be operating during our instructional hours so that they can create small groupings of children to provide them care as well as connect to their distance learning. So they're able to do that based on their licensing with childcare. We're working in collaboration with them on that. It was in the letter on on Monday. It will also be posted on our website and be in the newsletter tomorrow. And I also, just for people to know, I did receive confirmation from the College of Marin today that they are going to provide us some space in collaboration with Marin Enrichment so we can extend additional slots for families because the ratios need to continue to stay small. So as families are thinking about ways in which they can set up systems for themselves, that is a great opportunity that we have here locally. And just for people to know, you'll get more information via the newsletter. And if you received the letter on Monday, it was embedded in that letter as well. So hope that helps a little bit.
Thank you.
Shayla?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So this may have been addressed early. I was a few minutes late, so I apologize, and you can skip over me if you've already covered it. But I wanted to find out if there's a plan in place for hybrid learning for when we are ready to go back in person. I know that we have to get off the state watch list, but does the school district intend to go right to a hybrid model when we get off the watch list, or what is what's the plan there?
Yeah, great question. So everything we're doing now, we're doing it with the thinking of the future. Will this work, or how can we make this work when we start welcoming kids back into our school? And so our model right now is designed on that. And so our thought is that we would bring kids back slowly. So it wouldn't be like the state or the county says, yep, you can. And so then we get, 12 kids flipping each day or whatever, all the different hybrid models that are out there. But we might bring our most vulnerable students back, or we might bring 3 or 4 or 6 per class and then more. And so the way we have our model set up is that we're able to transition. And when we get to that place where everybody's back, but we still have to do a hybrid model, then we'll be prepared for that. But it won't be like ripping off a Band-Aid. It will be step by step, and along with our teachers and our teachers union, and really making sure all the safety, measures are in place, directionality on campus, what PPE kids need, what do we need here on campus. So we're working on all of that now. Preparing that there might be an in-person time nearby, soon in our future. But definitely as we plan, and I'm really happy, Raquel's really leading us in this, is that we're really planning for a phase model, not like, well, this is distance learning and then we'll figure something else out when we come in person. So I do feel confident that we're planning for each step as it comes.
And do you anticipate issuing out to the school community what that plan is, and if so, when?
You mean the phase model?
The phase model, like what does the timeline look like? How long do you anticipate the transition taking? When you go back, when you get to, all kids back on campus, what does that look like? Is it AM, PM study? Is it 2 to 3 days per week, switching cohorts? Based on the day. I'm just kind of curious because I've heard different information from different school districts. I have a child in high school and they have a really specific plan, and I'm curious what ours is, and if it's still in the process, that's totally fine. Just curious when it might be issued to the group.
Yeah, it's still in process, and as you know, and you've noticed about Raquel from the start, first day she hit the ground, she was communicating. And she's been a consistent communicator every week and every time there's new information. So I can let her chime in if she wants, but I do know that we're in the process. We're developing it with our Teachers Association. It has to be ratified by staff. So there's some steps before we would release any information to the community, but just know that, we're taking it step by step, but we're planning out for the future. Raquel, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I just echo that's exactly how we're approaching this as a district, is really trying to go gradual and acknowledge the how this landscape continues to shift and monitor all of the data that we need to be related to what phases we need to put in place to bring kids back onto campus. And this also, I'll just name it up front, is the issue around the waiver. So we got information this week related to that waiver, and there is some information coming out from our local public health, and I'll continue to get myself educated so I know what the steps are that we need to take. But there's still more information to come. And so right now we're really focusing on being sure that we have our system set up for the distance learning that we know we need to implement through September 8th at the shortest time frame. So, so we'll continue to update you as information is released, but appreciate you continuing to ask the question.
Thank you.
So it's 4:50, and I just want to be cognizant of time because we have our Kent our 5th through 8th grade session in just a couple minutes. So Guy is the next person I'll just call on real quick. Dan, you're on, but let's see. Oh, there we are. Maya, you're right after Scott.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, it's Natalie. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's my kid's last name is Guy.
Guy.
Yeah. I have two upcoming 4th graders, and I just want to reach out, and I know it's been very difficult for a lot of parents for the spring, this past spring homeschooling. My question has more to do, and I know it's going to look a lot different, with the expectations as we get to how the actual day looks like. In 4th grade, the expectation had been for a greater amount of homework that had come home, and the expectation of how much we're expected to do beyond, if we're doing 15 minutes of live instruction, and then you only have like 20 minutes left in the green section, and then we pop off, we're gonna have these little free moments of increments to do the school day work. And then when we log off, what's the expectation going forward for how much kids are going to need to do in addition to that for the homework that's expected for 4th grade? And how we're going to submit and get feedback from that. I know that a lot of people also might have just time constraints and being able to get feedback for how their kids are doing. You know, I could kind of correct all my kids' work, but it doesn't really tell the teacher how my kids are doing if I'm always correcting their work. So just how that's going to work going forward.
Again, thank you for the question. Again, that'll kind of depend on the grade level, however, and what the teachers plan out. But I do know that there's been discussion about providing, like if there's homework that the thought that is the kids would do that after lunch, in the afternoon, kind of like at the homework time, but it would kind of feel like it's still in the school day. And as far as feedback and grading, I think that there'll be more, it'll be the teacher that's providing that feedback to your student about their work. And there'll be real-time feedback when there's, active instruction with the students, and then there'll be feedback. The teachers have that block in the afternoon and a little bit of time in the morning, and so that's their professional time to be able to figure out how they can, communicate with families, communicate with kids, provide feedback. And we're not totally there yet, but all those things I think the teachers all value. This is something really important to communicate how your child's doing. And so
I guess just from a feedback perspective, I think homework is really important. I think it helps kids learn, but I think it's very difficult for a parent to because when they're in school, the teacher tells them what to do, and the teacher tells them to do their math work, and the teacher tells them to write an essay. If mom or dad is the only one that says, okay, let's do your homework, let's do your math now. Okay, let's do your writing now. If it's only one person who's in charge of having them do something back to back, although it's important, you get less and less cooperation. So it takes longer than it really should to do these little assignments. It just takes longer for them to do it because it seems like mom is just telling them or dad is just telling them to do 5 things in a row. And so I'm just trying to figure out how we get them the equivalent level of a 4th grade education, because they're learning things that are, their math is getting more complicated and the writing structure is getting more complicated. And I feel like they need to put the time in, but I'm not sure when you have these little increments of 20 minutes and 15 minutes of instruction, who's actually going to get that work done in addition to the homework, and if they're just going to be sitting in front of that computer until 5 o'clock. And you might not have the answer, but I don't know what that homework portion of it is expected in the 4th grade, or if there is going to be an expectation.
So I'm not a 4th grade teacher, I'm a 3rd grade teacher, but what I can say is that there are going to be more points of contact starting in the fall for teachers and students than there were during the spring. During the spring, I think we did like 3 live Zooms a week. It's going to be much more frequent when we're starting up in a couple weeks. And I do know that 4th grade has used Google Classroom, and Google Classroom really allows for immediate or quick feedback to the student from the teacher, and it's easy to communicate back and forth. We just have to train our students on it. 3rd grade started using it a little bit, and then COVID happened, so the 3rd graders the kids going into 4th grade aren't as trained as they typically are, but we're going to do our best to get them trained on that, and I think that could be a parent ed piece as well for us moving forward. But know that feedback is incredibly important to us as well, and that we know that students need it in order to grow. And we know also that coming from a parent is not always as easy or as meaningful as when feedback comes from the teacher. We're a little scarier. So know that we hear you and we agree with you.
And I'll just add that, any homework is kind of interesting to call homework because the kids are going to be at home, but it will be an extension of the learning that's happened during the school day. It should be directly connected to what they've been learning, during that one of their core instructional blocks, totally connected, completely relevant, and then builds on the learning that they did, and will, or prepare them for the learning for the next day. So that's our goal, is to make it really connected to what's happening during the 8:30 to 1:30 period of their day.
Thank you.
So it is 4:57, and we've got a 5 o'clock is our next presentation. So we're going to have to go ahead and end now. And just want to say thank you to all the parents and guardians that were able to join, and a special thanks to our staff that's here, our teaching staff and our administrators. Really appreciate you being here and being willing and available to answer questions and provide information. So,
Joanna, can you type your question in the chat real quick, and I'll save the chat, and then we'll try to. I guess we have to go, but
yeah, we're gonna have to end it. I captured all of the chat. Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Thank you, teachers. Thank you, everyone.